Okay, so get this. We're diving deep into Alex Hormozi today.
Oh, yeah.
You guys sent in this awesome interview with him.
Yeah?
And let me tell you, this guy, he does not hold back.
No.
Like, we're talking straight up uncomfortable truths about success and failure
Really?
and what it really takes to get what you want out of life.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So what really stuck out to you?
Honestly, one of the first things that really jumped out at me was just how much he talks about death. I know it's not exactly, the happiest topic.
Yeah.
But he uses it in this really interesting way to help him make decisions.
Interesting.
Have you ever thought about death as like a motivator?
Yeah. I mean, it's all about perspective,
Right.
Like if you think about Stoic philosophy, it's a similar idea.
Okay.
By acknowledging that our time is limited, we actually free ourselves from worrying so much about what other people think.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And suddenly what we want to achieve becomes much clearer.
Totally. And he even says that in a few generations, nobody will remember us anyway.
Right.
Or, the people whose opinions might be holding us back right now.
Absolutely. And he even uses this thought experiment like, imagine looking down at Earth from space.
Oh, wow.
All our worries and dramas seem pretty insignificant from that perspective, don't they?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's about recognizing that a lot of the things that we stress about, they're self-imposed.
It's like that saying, right? Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all small stuff.
It really is.
But he doesn't stop at just thinking big picture.
Right.
He also talks about this thing called the region beta paradox,
Oh, yeah.
which is a bit more nuanced.
Yeah, it's this idea that sometimes we get too comfortable,
Okay.
and that comfort actually prevents us from taking the necessary risks to grow.
I've been there.
Have you?
Oh, totally. I stayed in a job way too long because it was easy,
Oh, I see.
even though it was making me miserable.
Yeah.
And looking back, hitting that breaking point and being forced to change was like the best thing that could happen.
Exactly. And, Hormozi, he uses his own life as an example.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he talks about leaving his job and his family losing everything, even going through a DUI.
Wow.
At these pivotal moments that, while they were difficult,
Right.
ultimately forced him to become who he is today.
So it's like that idea that sometimes you need to break down the old to build up the new.
It is.
I'm curious, though, how do we apply this region beta paradox without having to hit rock bottom?
Right.
Is there a way to proactively create that discomfort?
We talk about something called anxiety cost.
Okay.
It's like we're paying this mental and emotional price by avoiding tough conversations or delaying decisions.
Okay.
You know how we often think, I'll deal with that at the end of the week?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
He suggests shifting that to the end of the day. Force yourself to act sooner rather than later.
So just rip off the Band-Aid.
Exactly.
I like that.
Make it happen.
That's a really concrete step that we can all take.
Totally.
But, he's also honest about the fact that he's not some, fearless superhuman.
Right.
He talks about being driven by insecurity and fear of failure, just like a lot of us.
But he uses that fear as fuel.
Okay.
He argues that high achievers, they often connect their actions to a fear of death. Not literally,
Right.
but more like the death of their potential.
Oh, I see.
So think about it.
Yeah.
What would you regret not doing if you knew you had limited time?
That's a great question.
Right.
Yeah, and it kind of leads into his concept of choosing your regrets.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
He says regrets are inevitable because we can't do everything,
Of course.
so we need to decide which ones we're okay living with.
He suggests we flip it instead of focusing on what we want,
Okay.
which can be overwhelming.
Right.
What do we want to avoid the most? So like staying in that dead-end job or the regret of wasting a decade of your life.
Okay, that's a good one.
Right. It really puts things into perspective.
Yeah, it definitely reframes things.
It triggers that runaway from instinct we all have.
Oh, yeah.
We're actually more motivated by avoiding loss than pursuing gain,
That's interesting.
isn't it?
And that actually ties into another big theme that he talks about, which is proving people wrong.
Oh, yeah.
He's clearly been driven by that desire to exceed expectations,
Totally.
to show the doubters what he's capable of.
It's a big motivator for a lot of people.
Do you think that's healthy, though, or can it become a trap?
I think it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
He talks about using our pain as fuel, channeling resentment into action. But he also warns against letting that desire for revenge consume us.
Right.
It's got to be about more than just proving someone else wrong.
Right. It can't be about them at all.
Exactly.
It has to be about defining success on our own terms,
Yeah.
not letting someone else's opinion be the measure of our worth.
And, that can get tricky as we achieve more.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, he talks about how people often cheer us on when we're the underdog, but their attitude can change as we surpass them.
Wait, are you saying like people get jealous when we succeed?
It happens.
That's kind of messed up.
It is, but think about it. Have you ever seen it happen?
I guess so, yeah.
He calls it tall poppy syndrome.
Interesting.
Those closest to us can sometimes feel threatened by our growth.
Oh, wow.
It's a reminder that relationships can be tested as we evolve.
So how do we deal with that? Should we like downplay our success to keep people comfortable?
Hormozi says the answer is to become so successful that the haters shrink into irrelevance. Their opinions simply don't matter anymore because you're operating at a different level.
Now, that's a goal I can get behind.
Right.
But how do we even get started on that path?
That's the question.
Yeah, he talked a lot about finding your thing, right?
Exactly. It's like an athlete dedicating their life to their sport.
Okay.
He calls it turning pro in whatever you choose to pursue. Full commitment, constant improvement, mastering your craft.
Got it.
He even tells this crazy story
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
about working on his podcast after rupturing his Achilles tendon.
Yeah, that was wild.
Right. It shows that for him, commitment isn't just a word, it's a way of life.
Wow.
He also stresses preparation as a way to combat nervousness and perform at our best. When we've done the work, there's no need to fear the outcome.
That's such a good reminder because I often get so caught up in the worry about doing something that I forget to actually do the prep work that would make me feel confident.
Yeah, I get that. It's easy to get caught up in the mental game.
Totally.
But that confidence,
Yeah.
that sense of, I've got this, it comes from knowing your success isn't due to luck, but to the effort you've put in.
It's about owning your accomplishments, not minimizing them.
Exactly.
But then he also talks about setting ambitious goals.
Yes.
Which seems a bit counterintuitive.
How so?
Well, if we're focused on what we can control, shouldn't our goals be realistic?
He argues that setting the bar high is about more than just the achievement itself.
Oh.
It's the anticipation, the process of working towards something big that keeps us motivated and makes the journey enjoyable.
So it's not about reaching the destination, but about who we become along the way.
You got it.
And that ties into his interesting take on self-love.
Right.
For him, it's not about accepting mediocrity or being complacent with who we are today.
No.
It's about holding ourselves to a higher standard, always striving to be better.
I like that.
That almost sounds like the opposite of what we usually hear about self-love, though.
True. He challenges the idea of self-acceptance as an excuse to stay stuck.
Huh.
He says we should accept our circumstances, but never stop trying to improve ourselves.
It's like accepting where we are on the map, but knowing we can choose a new destination.
I like that analogy.
But with all this talk about pushing ourselves, it's easy to get overwhelmed.
Totally.
And he acknowledges that too, right?
Oh, absolutely. We live in a world of information overload. But his advice is brilliantly simple.
Yeah, what is it?
Focus on the one thing that resonates most from anything you consume.
Okay.
Don't try to remember everything, just the good shit that sticks with you.
I love that.
Right.
He calls it mental masturbation when we just consume information without taking action.
He does.
It's like we're getting off on the idea of learning
Yes.
without actually doing anything with it.
Exactly. He's all about distilling things down to their essence
Okay.
and then taking action based on those core insights.
So true. And speaking of action,
Yeah.
that's where his redefinition of patience comes in.
Oh, tell me about it.
So it's not about waiting around passively.
No, not at all.
Okay.
He says true patience is figuring out what you can be doing in the meantime while you're working towards those long-term goals.
So it's finding that balance between playing the long game and taking action in the present,
Exactly.
which I guess is something a lot of us struggle with, especially when we're comparing ourselves to others.
It is, and he has a lot to say about that.
I bet.
Especially for those who might be fueled by a desire to prove people wrong.
Right.
And, he even admits that was a big motivator for him early on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his father's disapproval really pushed him.
It's interesting how he's so open about the kind of darker side of ambition. It's not always pretty.
It's not, but here's the crucial point.
Okay.
He warns against letting that desire for revenge consume us.
Okay.
It's about channeling that energy into constructive action,
Right.
not letting it hijack our goals or dictate our direction.
So we should use it as fuel, but not let it become the engine itself.
Exactly. And, that ties into what he says about relationships and how they change as we become more successful.
Oh, yeah. He calls it tall poppy syndrome, right?
He does.
It's like people cheer us on when we're underdogs, but then their attitude can shift when we start to surpass them.
Yeah.
It's almost like some people feel threatened by our success.
He's not afraid to talk about the less glamorous side of success.
True. It's not always smooth sailing. It makes you wonder, who are the real friends? The ones who celebrate our wins no matter what, or the ones who feel the need to cut us down to size?
That's a good question.
Right.
He doesn't offer easy answers.
Right.
But he does provide a perspective shift.
Okay.
His solution is to become so big that the haters shrink into irrelevance.
Okay.
Focus on your growth, not their approval.
Easier said than done, but there's something powerful about that image.
It is powerful.
It's about recognizing that their opinions say more about them than they do about us.
Exactly. And that leads to his point about defining success on our own terms.
Right. What does success really mean to you?
That's a good question to ask yourself.
Yeah, what are you striving for?
And it's not about trying to fit into someone else's mold
Right.
or meet their expectations.
It's about creating your own definition.
Exactly.
One that aligns with our values and aspirations.
Absolutely. And that ties into his whole idea of finding your thing right.
Right.
It's about finding that pursuit you can commit to fully.
Like that athlete.
It's exactly like an athlete dedicates their life to their sport.
Okay.
He calls it turning pro. Adopting that mindset of continuous improvement, mastering your craft.
I like that.
He even tells this crazy story about working on his podcast, even after rupturing his Achilles tendon.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah. That's some serious dedication.
It highlights the importance of pushing through discomfort,
Right.
prioritizing those goals even when faced with challenges.
And he even says that the key to combating nervousness and performing at our best is preparation.
It's true.
It's like that old adage, fail to prepare, prepare to fail.
I love that.
Right.
It's so true.
So when we know we've done the work, there's nothing to fear.
Exactly. And that leads to a sense of accomplishment.
So it's not just about hitting the goal, it's about knowing you earned it.
That you earned it. You owned it.
And I guess that ties into his views on setting those ambitious goals right.
It does, because it's not just about the achievement itself, but the anticipation and the process of working towards something big that keeps us motivated and makes the journey enjoyable.
So it's about enjoying the process, not just chasing the outcome.
Exactly.
But I think for a lot of people, that's easier said than done, especially when we're bombarded with messages that success should be easy or effortless.
Oh, I know. And he has some choice words for people who dismiss others' success as easy or lucky.
Oh, yeah.
He calls it a victim mentality.
Oh.
That ignores the hard work and dedication involved.
Right, because nothing worth having comes easy.
It doesn't.
And I think that's a message a lot of people need to hear.
They do. It's about taking ownership of your journey.
Yeah.
And recognizing that you have the power to create the future you want. Yeah, it's so easy to fall into that trap, right? Comparing ourselves to others,
Totally.
focusing on what they have that we don't.
Yeah.
But that's a recipe for misery.
It is. It's like that Teddy Roosevelt quote, comparison is the thief of joy.
That's so good.
Right.
He emphasizes the power of consistency, though. A mediocre plan executed consistently beats a brilliant one that's abandoned.
That's a good point.
He actually uses Charlie Munger's analogy.
Okay.
The money isn't made in the buy or the sell, it's made in the wait.
I love that.
Right.
It's a reminder that success is often about showing up day after day, even when we don't feel like it.
Sticking to the plan even when it gets boring. Or motivation wanes.
Yeah.
And he has this great productivity hack.
Okay.
Don't wait for the perfect conditions to work, just start working.
Okay.
Action creates motivation, not the other way around.
So simple, yet so powerful.
I know.
It's like we get stuck in this cycle of waiting for inspiration to strike before we take action.
And it rarely happens that way.
Never.
It's like that Zeigarnik effect we talked about earlier.
Right.
An unfinished task.
Yeah.
It sticks in our minds more than a completed one.
Oh, that's true.
So starting is the key
Got it.
to unlocking that mental loop and getting things done.
I think for a lot of people, the hardest part is just overcoming that initial inertia. Like we get so caught up in planning and strategizing
Oh, yeah.
that we forget to actually take the first step.
You just got to start.
Just start.
And, I love how Hormozi, he challenges us to judge ourselves by our actions, not our thoughts.
Okay.
He says we can cultivate positive traits by acting in accordance with them.
Mm-hmm.
even if we don't initially feel them.
So like fake it till you make it.
Kind of, but how does that actually work?
Yeah.
It's like building evidence for the person we want to become.
Okay.
You want to be more patient.
Yeah.
Act patiently.
Even when you're not feeling it.
Even when you're not feeling it,
Yeah.
eventually the evidence, it'll outweigh the feeling.
That's interesting.
He even applies this to his view on self-love.
Okay, how so?
He says it's about holding ourselves to a higher standard than anyone else does. Not about accepting mediocrity, but constantly pushing to be better.
Again, it's like he's turning the traditional definition of self-love on its head.
He's rejecting complacency.
Okay.
And embracing that gap between who we are and who we could be.
Yeah, I like that.
That gap is where the growth happens.
That makes sense.
You know, he even rejects the whole self-acceptance movement.
Does he really?
He does. He says, we should accept circumstances, but never stop striving to improve ourselves.
It's like that quote, strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value.
Ooh, I like that one.
But all this striving can be exhausting.
Oh, it can be.
Can't it?
It can, but, you know, he acknowledges that.
Does he?
He does. He talks about dealing with overwhelm and information overload, something we're all facing these days.
Oh, yeah.
His advice.
Yeah.
Focus on the one thing that really sticks with you from any piece of content.
He calls it the good shit sticks.
That's it.
Right.
Whatever we can't stop thinking about, that's the thing we need to work on.
So true.
It's about distilling the noise into actionable insights.
Okay.
And focusing our energy where it matters most.
So how do we actually do that?
Right.
Because it's one thing to identify the good shit, but it's another to actually put it into practice.
This is where his redefinition of patience comes in.
Okay.
It's not just about waiting passively,
Right.
but figuring out what to do in the meantime while those long-term goals are playing out.
So it's like planting seeds and nurturing them while we wait for the harvest.
Exactly.
But how do we stay motivated during that waiting period?
It's tough, and he acknowledges that it's a struggle for many people,
Right.
especially those who are driven by a desire to prove people wrong. And, you know, he used his father's disapproval as a driving force in his own life.
It's interesting how he's so open about that kind of darker side of ambition.
Yeah.
It's not always pretty, is it?
No, it's not. But here's the crucial point.
Okay.
He warns against letting that desire for revenge consume us.
Right.
It's about channeling that energy into constructive action,
Okay.
not letting it hijack our goals or dictate our direction.
So we can use it as fuel,
Yes.
but we can't let it become the engine itself.
Exactly. And, you know, that ties into what he says about relationships and how they change as we become more successful.
Right. And this is where the tall poppy syndrome comes in, right?
It does.
It's like people cheer us on when we're the underdogs, but then their attitude can shift when we start to surpass them.
It's true.
It's almost like some people feel threatened by our success.
He's not afraid to talk about that less glamorous side of success, you know?
No, he's not. It makes you wonder, though, who are the real friends?
Yeah.
The ones who celebrate our wins no matter what, or the ones who feel the need to cut us down to size?
That's a good question.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
And he doesn't offer easy answers,
Of course not.
but he does provide a perspective shift.
Oh.
His solution
Yep.
becomes so big that the haters shrink into irrelevance.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Focus on your growth, not their approval.
Easier said than done, but there is something powerful about that image.
Right. It's about recognizing that their opinions say more about them
Yeah.
than they do about us.
And that leads to his point about defining success on our own terms.
Exactly.
What does success really mean to you?
That's the million-dollar question.
What are you striving for?
It's not about trying to fit into someone else's mold
Right.
or meet their expectations.
It's about creating your own definition, one that aligns with your values and aspirations.
And that ties into his whole idea of finding your thing.
Oh, right.
Remember, it's about finding that pursuit you can commit to fully, like an athlete dedicates their life to their sport.
Right.
He calls it turning pro.
Uh-huh.
Adopting that mindset of continuous improvement, mastering your craft.
I like that.
He even tells that crazy story about working on his podcast, even after rupturing his Achilles tendon.
Oh, yeah. That was wild.
It highlights his point, though. True commitment means pushing through discomfort
Totally.
and prioritizing your goals, even when faced with challenges.
He even says that the key to combating nervousness and performing at our best is preparation.
Yep, he's a big believer in doing the work.
It's like that old adage, right? Fail to prepare to fail.
So true.
So when we know we've done the work, there's nothing to fear.
Exactly, and that leads to a sense of accomplishment, a sense of pride in what you've achieved.
So it's not just about hitting the goal. It's about knowing you earned it.
You owned it.
Yeah.
You created it.
And I guess that ties into his views on setting those ambitious goals right.
It does, because it's not just about the achievement itself,
Mm-hmm.
but the anticipation and the process of working towards something big that keeps us motivated and makes the journey enjoyable.
It's about enjoying the process, not just chasing the outcome.
And that can be tough sometimes.
It can, especially when we're bombarded with messages that success should be easy and effortless.
Oh, I know. And he has some choice words for people who dismiss others' success as easy or lucky.
Oh, really? Like what?
He calls it a victim mentality that ignores the hard work and dedication involved.
Right. Nothing worth having comes easy.
It doesn't. And I think that's a message a lot of people need to hear.
Totally.
His advice. Focus on what you can control.
Okay.
Your effort, your actions. Don't make excuses or blame external factors.
Yeah.
It's about taking ownership of your life,
Yeah.
realizing you have the power to create the future you want. It really is. And, he keeps coming back to this idea of motivation.
Yeah.
Seems like he's got some pretty unconventional views on it.
Yeah, he does. He doesn't buy into that whole, find your passion thing.
No, not at all. He actually challenges the idea that motivation is something we need to find or get. He suggests that motivation is a byproduct of action.
Interesting.
The more we do, the more motivated we become.
Okay, so it's not about waiting for the feeling. It's about taking the first step, even if we don't feel like it.
Exactly. It's like a positive feedback loop.
Right.
Action fuels motivation, which fuels more action.
Okay, I like that.
He even gives this really practical tip.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for motivation to strike, just start working on the task at hand.
So simple, but I bet it's really effective.
It is, and that's where discipline comes in.
Ah, yes, discipline, the magic word.
He emphasizes that discipline is what separates successful people from those who simply dream of success.
So true.
It's about showing up consistently, even when it's hard, even when we're tired, even when we'd rather be doing something else.
So it's about building those habits, creating routines that support our goals, and sticking to them even when we don't feel like it.
He challenges us to ask ourselves, who do I want to be? What kind of life do I want to create?
Ooh, those are big questions.
They are. And then he says we need to take actions that align with that vision.
Okay.
Even when it's difficult, even when we're tired, even when we face setbacks and challenges.
He's really pushing us to step outside of our comfort zones.
He is. He reminds us that we have the power to shape our own destinies.
It's a powerful message, but it can also feel a little overwhelming.
It can.
Where do we even begin?
He offers a very simple starting point.
Okay.
Focus on one thing.
Why thing?
He argues that we don't need to remember everything we read or hear. Instead, we should focus on extracting the one key insight that resonates with us most. The good shit that sticks in our minds.
I love that phrase, the good shit sticks.
It's catchy, right?
It is.
It's about filtering out the noise and focusing on the signal.
He also challenges us to be discerning consumers of information.
Oh, yeah.
Right? To question everything and to avoid blindly following the advice of others.
It's about thinking for yourself.
So it's about developing our own critical thinking skills and trusting our own intuition.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for us.
Right.
Not blindly following someone else's formula.
And it's about taking a long-term perspective, too.
Right. It is. He reminds us that success is rarely a linear journey.
Okay.
And that there will be setbacks and challenges along the way.
We're going to fall down. We're going to make mistakes.
It's inevitable.
We're going to want to give up.
But he encourages us to be patient.
Okay.
To trust the process and to focus on making consistent progress over time.
That can be hard.
It can, but he also reminds us that our biggest regrets will likely come from inaction.
Oh, really?
From the things we didn't do, the risks we didn't take, the opportunities we let pass us by.
That's a good point.
It's about choosing courage over comfort, action over inaction.
So powerful.
And, he talks a lot about choosing our regrets wisely.
Right.
Making decisions that align with our values and aspirations.
Living a life that we can look back on with pride and fulfillment.
Exactly. And that leads us back to his definition of success.
Which is?
He challenges us to redefine it on our own terms.
Okay.
He argues that true success is not about external validation, but about becoming the best version of ourselves.
I like that.
It's about living a life that is aligned with our values, that is meaningful and fulfilling, and that leaves a positive impact on the world.
So it's not about the money, the accolades.
Yeah.
It's about something much deeper.
Exactly. It's about living a life of purpose.
And how do we do that?
He encourages us to set ambitious goals, to pursue our passions, to take risks, to embrace challenges, and to never stop learning and growing.
It's a tall order.
It is. But he reminds us that life is short
So true.
and that we should make the most of every moment.
And I think that's really the key takeaway here, right?
It is.
It's about appreciating the journey, not just focusing on the destination.
He encourages us to find joy in the process.
Yeah.
To be grateful for what we have and to live a life that is worthy of our potential.
Wow. Listening to him, you almost get the sense that he's cracked some kind of code.
I know, right?
Like he's figured out the secrets to happiness and fulfillment.
Well, I appreciate that he doesn't present himself as having all the answers.
Right.
He's simply sharing what's worked for him, the lessons he's learned along the way.
And he does it in a way that's both relatable and inspiring.
He's not preaching from some ivory tower.
Exactly. He's been in the trenches, he's faced challenges, he's made mistakes.
And he's come out stronger on the other side.
It's a powerful reminder that we all have the potential for greatness within us.
Pretty too.
And that we have the power to choose our own path, to create our own reality, and to make a positive impact on the world.
I love that.
Me too. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yes.
I'm curious, what are you taking away from this conversation?
For me, it's that action is the antidote to fear, to doubt, to procrastination.
Oh, yeah, he's got that great line.
Which one?
Inaction breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage. If you want to conquer fear, do not sit home and think about it. Go out and get busy.
I love that one. And for our listeners, I hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
Maybe even a little bit of a kick in the pants.
A little fuel for the fire.
If there's one thing I hope you take away from this, it's that you have the power to create the life you want.
You do.
Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for someone else to tell you it's okay to go after your dreams.
Start today. Take that first step and never stop believing in yourself.